So this is session 2 of part 2 of The Father's House. The story of the lost son tells us that after the father gave him his money, he got his things together and he left for a far country, a far land. It suggests that he went out of Israel's territory. He was leaving his culture behind. And the fact that he later ended up feeding pigs suggests it was a pagan area because the Jewish people, to the Jew, pigs were unclean. He probably went to a town because it said he spent his wealth in wild living. That's a bit hard to do in a small village or out in the countryside. Most likely it was a large Roman city like the ones in the Decapolis to the east of the Jordan. This would have been a challenge in many ways. From a small village with its narrow streets and little stone houses to a city with wide paved roads, mighty pillars, fountains of running water, exotic temples, enormous statues of the emperor and so on. A little bit like someone from Cuba Pedy finding themselves in Las Vegas. But the attractions of that way of life must have been immediate. The focus of that culture was power, pleasure and leisure. Now his Jewish upbringing was family, sanctity of marriage, and so all of this would be challenged. Here there were temple prostitutes, and sexuality was seen as something to be used quite loosely. There would have been shops selling all sorts of things that he'd never seen before. And he got sucked in. It says he squandered his wealth on wild living, or another translation for wild living is extravagant living. The attraction of this lifestyle leads us away from the values of God. And God warned the people about this while they were still in the desert before they reached the promised land. He says this. This is Deuteronomy 6:10-12. When the Lord your God brings you into the land he swore to your fathers, to Abraham, Isaac and Jacob, to give you, a land with large flourishing cities you did not build, houses filled with all sorts of good things you did not provide, wells you did not dig, and vineyards and olive groves you did not plant, then when you eat and are satisfied, be careful that you do not forget the Lord who brought you out of Egypt, out of the land of slavery. See, when life is easy and goods are plenty, the temptation is that we forget God. He's warning the people before they entered the promised land, do not forget me, do not forget what I have done for you. This young man would have entered this city wearing the tassels that the Jews were commanded to wear, and those tassels were there to remind them who they were. They were God's people, to show God to the world. I wonder if after a while he took that tassel off because he was being challenged by the way of life that he was repudiating. How easily we can get led away from Christian values, from living lives that proclaim the truth of God's word, simply by the attractions of the culture that's all around us.
I have a maker before my heart, before even time began, my life was in his hand. He knows my name. He knows my every thought. He sees each tear that falls and hears me when I'm gone. I have a Father. He calls me his own. He'll never slave.